You're tired, not just physically, but in that deeper way that sleep doesn't fix. You go through the day saying the right things, smiling at the right moments, adjusting yourself depending on who's in front of you. And somehow, even when everything goes well, it still feels like you're losing something inside. Maybe you've been telling yourself this is just what life is, that being kind means always saying yes, that being a good person means never disappointing anyone. But if you're honest, part of you feels stretched thin, like you've been living on stage for too long without ever stepping off, constantly reading the room, measuring reactions, and quietly asking yourself, was that enough? Who are you trying the hardest to impress right now? You don't even have to say it out loud, but you know, there's a name or maybe a group, or maybe it's everyone. And the pressure of that, it follows you everywhere, into your decisions, into your silence, even into moments that are supposed to feel peaceful. You hesitate before being honest. You overthink simple conversations. You replay things you said hours ago, because somewhere along the way, your worth got tied to their response. And that's a heavy way to live. So let me say this gently, you were never meant to carry that. Not every opinion deserves access to your identity. Not every reaction should define your value. And yet, when you've lived this way long enough, it starts to feel normal, even though deep down something in you is quietly resisting, asking for space, for truth, for freedom you haven't fully allowed yourself to step into yet. And maybe that's why you're here, not by accident, but because something in you is ready. Feels good at first, when someone notices you, when they approve of what you said, how you acted, who you were in that moment. There's a kind of warmth in it, like you're finally getting something you needed. And maybe you did need it, to be seen, to be affirmed, to feel like you matter. But the problem isn't the feeling, it's the dependency, because human praise is unstable. It shifts, it changes, it disappears. Maybe you've noticed this. The same people who celebrate you one day can misunderstand you the next. The same voice that lifts you up can suddenly go quiet, or worse, become critical. And when your identity is tied to that, your sense of worth starts rising and falling with opinions you were never meant to build your life on. It's like trying to stand on water. There's nothing solid under you. And deep down, your soul knows that. That's why even when you get the approval, it doesn't last. You might feel relief for a moment, maybe even a small sense of breakthrough, but then the question comes back again. Am I still okay? Do they still approve? Did I do enough this time? Never ends, because you're trying to fill a stable need with unstable sources. Maybe you've been thinking, if I can just get everyone to be happy with me, then I'll finally feel at peace. But peace doesn't come from managing people. It comes from being anchored somewhere unchanging. And this is where the trap quietly tightens. The more you chase approval, the more you adjust yourself. The more you adjust yourself, the further you drift from who you really are. And the further you drift, the harder it becomes to even recognize what you truly feel, what you truly need, or who you are when no one is watching. That's not freedom. That's quiet captivity. And yet, it can look so normal on the outside. You're still functioning, still showing up, still doing what's expected. But inside, something feels off. Because your life has been shaped by many voices. Too many. And none of them were meant to define you. What if it's not about trying harder, but about changing who you're living for? Because right now, it might feel like your life has an audience. not just one, but many, different expectations, different opinions, different versions of who you're supposed to be, depending on who's watching. And that's exhausting. You adjust your tone. You filter your thoughts. You carry this quiet awareness of being seen and evaluated. But you were never meant to live like that. Maybe the shift you need isn't more effort. It's a new focus. Instead of living for many, what if you lived for one? Not in a heavy, pressure-filled way, but in a quiet, grounding way. God is not watching you like a critic. He's present with you, like someone who already knows you fully. There's no performance required there, no image to maintain. And that changes something, because when your life is centered on people, you're constantly scanning for reactions. But when your life is centered on God, you begin to notice something different, a sense of alignment that isn't based on applause, but on peace, a quiet inner steadiness that doesn't fluctuate every time someone misunderstands you or doesn't respond the way you hoped. You start asking different questions. Not, do they like me? But, am I being honest right now? Am I at peace with this? Does this feel aligned with who God created me to be? And slowly, something begins to settle. You don't need to explain yourself as much. You don't need to overextend just to be accepted. You don't feel the same pull to prove your worth, because your audience has changed. And with that, your pressure begins to lift. This doesn't mean you stop caring about people. It just means they're no longer the source of your identity. There's a difference. One keeps you anxious. The other brings you back to yourself. And maybe right now, you can feel that shift starting. Just a little. Like something inside you is loosening, making space for a different way of living. It sounds almost backwards, that living to please God would actually make you feel less stressed, less pressured, more at peace. But that's because we've learned to associate pleasing with performance, with pressure, with never being enough. And God doesn't operate like that. He's not asking you to become someone else. He's not waiting for you to finally get everything right. He's already aware of every part of you, and he hasn't stepped away. Sit with that for a moment, because if his presence isn't based on your perfection, then your effort to perform begins to lose its grip. And in that space, something unexpected starts to happen. You stop striving to earn what has already been freely given, and instead, you begin to rest in it. That's where real peace starts. Not the kind that comes from everything going your way, but the kind that stays, even when things feel uncertain. You don't have to impress him. You don't have to manage his opinion. There's no hidden standard you're trying to reach. No invisible line you keep falling short of. There's just presence. And from that place, your actions begin to shift, not out of fear, but out of alignment. You start choosing honesty over approval, truth over comfort, peace over performance. And here's the quiet breakthrough. When you stop trying to be everything to everyone, and instead live from the place of being already accepted by God, your life begins to simplify in a way that feels almost unfamiliar at first, because you're no longer carrying the weight of constant evaluation. And in that release, your mind softens, your body relaxes, and your spirit begins to open again. This is what freedom feels like. Not reckless, not disconnected, but steady. And maybe for the first time in a while, you can breathe without trying to be someone else. You don't need to rebuild your whole life overnight, but you do need a reset in how you see yourself, because people-pleasing isn't just a habit. It's a pattern rooted in identity. So we're going to shift that gently, step by step, not with pressure, but with awareness. Step 1, notice the moment. That moment when you're about to say yes, but something inside you hesitates. When you feel that small tension in your chest, that quiet inner voice saying, "This isn't really what I want," and yet your instinct is to override it, just to keep things smooth. Pause there. That moment matters more than you think, because that's where the pattern begins. Step 2, tell yourself the truth, not the polished version, the real one. Part of me is afraid they'll be disappointed. Part of me feels responsible for how they feel. Part of me doesn't want to lose their approval. There's no judgment here, just honesty. And honesty creates space. Step 3, reconnect with who you are. Not who you've been adapting into, but who you actually are underneath all of that. You are not here to manage everyone's emotions. You are not responsible for being everything to everyone. And more than that, your worth is not fragile. It doesn't rise and fall based on someone's reaction. God already established it. Before the conversation, before the expectation, before the pressure. Step 4, choose alignment. This is where it shifts. Instead of asking, what will keep everyone happy? You begin asking, what feels honest and at peace? And sometimes that answer will be uncomfortable. Sometimes it will mean saying no, or not explaining yourself as much, or letting someone misunderstand you. But here's the truth. Discomfort is not the same as wrong, and peace is not the same as pleasing everyone. You're learning a new way, and it takes practice. So be patient with yourself. You're not going to get it perfect. You might still fall back into old patterns sometimes. That doesn't mean you've failed. It just means you're becoming aware. And awareness is where transformation begins. So right now, let's anchor this. Take a slow breath. And if you feel ready, I want you to type this in the comments. I choose alignment over approval. Just that. No pressure. Just a quiet decision. Because something is shifting in you, even now. Let's slow down. You don't have to do anything right now. Just be here. If you can, close your eyes. Take a gentle breath in and let it out slowly. You've been carrying a lot, more than you let people see. And right now, you don't have to carry it alone. God, we're here. Not with perfect words. Not with everything figured out. Just honestly. You see the parts of me that feel tired. The parts that keep trying to be enough for everyone. The parts that feel afraid to disappoint. And maybe I haven't said this out loud before, but it's exhausting. Trying to be liked. Trying to be accepted. Trying to keep everything together. So right now, I bring that to you. Every moment I said yes when I meant no. Every time I silenced myself just to keep peace. Every weight I picked up that was never mine to carry. I release it, not all at once, but right here, in this moment. God, help me come back to who I really am. Not the version shaped by fear. Not the version built on approval. But the one you created, whole, steady, and enough. Remind me that I don't have to earn your presence. Remind me that I don't have to perform to be loved. Let that truth settle deeper than the voices I've been listening to. And where there's been anxiety, bring peace. Where there's been pressure, bring release. Where I've been divided, bring alignment. Not the kind that looks perfect on the outside, but the kind that feels real on the inside. God, teach me how to walk differently, to speak honestly, even when it's uncomfortable, to set boundaries without guilt, to trust that the right people won't require me to lose myself just to stay connected. And even if they don't understand, help me stay anchored. Right now, I receive your peace, not because everything is solved, but because you are here, steady, present, unchanging. Let that peace settle over my thoughts, quieting the noise, slowing the need to overthink, and gently reminding me that I am safe to be who I am without constantly adjusting myself to be accepted. And if you feel ready, just whisper this quietly or say it in your heart. I am already accepted. Let it land, not as a concept, but as truth. God, thank you for meeting me here, not when I was perfect, but right now. And from this place, I choose to move forward differently, with less fear, with more clarity, and with a quiet confidence that doesn't need to prove anything. Amen. This doesn't end here. Not when the video ends, not when you open your eyes, because this isn't just something you felt. It's something you carry with you now. Maybe not perfectly, but differently. Today, something shifted. You might still hear the old thoughts, the privuchka to overthink, to adjust, to please, but now you'll notice it, and that changes everything, because awareness gives you a choice, a small pause before you respond, a quiet moment where you can ask yourself, is this coming from peace or pressure? And in that space, you get to choose again, not based on fear, but from alignment. You don't have to rush this. Freedom doesn't come all at once. It comes in moments, in small decisions, in the times you choose honesty, even when it feels unfamiliar, in the times you let someone misunderstand you and don't chase after fixing it, in the times you stay true instead of staying approved. That's where your strength grows, not loud, but steady. And over time, you'll notice something beautiful. You'll feel lighter, not because life got easier, but because you stopped carrying what was never yours. That's the miracle. Not something outside of you, but something happening within you. A quiet confidence, a grounded peace, a life that feels like it actually belongs to you. So as you go into your day or your night, take this with you. You are not here to be approved by everyone. You are here to be aligned with who you were created to be. And that is enough. If this moment helped you, just take one small step to anchor it. You can subscribe so you don't lose this space, or just come back to this message when you feel yourself slipping. You're not starting over. You're continuing, and you're not doing it alone. God is with you even now, and something in you is finally free.